it's important not to spend too much time writing your rap songs, because if you do, you run the risk of getting burnt out, losing focus and drive and inspiration. And oftentimes you may end up just giving up entirely on the song itself. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 easy hacks that you can begin implementing today that's going to dramatically speed up the songwriting process, and it's going to make it so much more fun as well. So without further ado, let's get it! What's going on, everybody? It's your boy ColeMize for ColeMizeStudios.com, where it's my main goal to help you be a better rapper now. Now, my first tip for you today is all about how you approach songwriting from the beginning. So most rappers will tend to begin their songwriting process by just starting to write rhymes, start writing lyrics, usually the verses. And the problem with this is usually it's the rhyme scheme. When you take this approach, it's usually the rhyme scheme that dictates where the song actually ends up going. And so you really don't know where it's going. It's just kind of happening in the moment as you continue writing the song. And you run the risk of your song coming out sounding very random and bipolar maybe, and it lacks direction. And it's very common for you to get stuck during the middle of the songwriting process. You may write a whole entire verse, or you may be close to finishing the first verse and you're like, I don't even know where this is going. It's like playing Russian roulette with songwriting, and it can be fun to take this approach, but you don't want to spend time writing a verse and not knowing where this is all going. And so what I recommend doing is, before you begin writing your song, dedicate like 5 to 10 minutes at least to just brainstorming and storyboarding your song out. Just take inventory of what ideas you're getting from listening to the instrumental and jot that stuff down. And they can be totally unrelated during the brainstorming process. And then just look at that mess that is a brainstorm and see if you can maybe pick several things that you got during your brainstorming process that you can start building a concept around your song. And then you can kind of flesh it out from there as much as you want, just to get an idea of what is this song. You know, it's like delivering a baby. Like, what is this baby going to be? What do I want to prepare? What do I want to whip up in the lab today? And just a little bit of planning before you begin writing any lyrics will go a long way, and it's going to give you a really good sense of direction once you actually start writing lyrics, okay? And that's going to make your songwriting so much faster because you will have clarity on where this is going. And it'll eliminate a lot of that guessing work, all that aimless work that you'll do if you don't take this approach. And I always say that I think of it almost like driving a car, right? We don't normally jump into a car and drive off until we know where our destination is. So I approach songwriting in a similar way. Tip number 2, after you do your brainstorming and storyboarding, a lot of rappers, even from there, will tend to start writing their verse. I recommend instead writing the hook first. And there's several reasons why. Reason number 1 being that a hook is typically 8 bars in length, right? And it's typically repeated 3 times on average, usually throughout a song. So just by knocking out the hook alone, you're already knocking out almost half of the song, which that gives you a lot of momentum, which will propel you forward in the songwriting process. That way you have a sense of like, hey, I'm making headway, I'm making progress, I'm doing this, like this is going places. Reason number 2 is, if you knock out the hook first, then when you go to write your verses, you will have so much more direction because you know what that verse is leading up to, because you know what's coming after the verse, which is the hook. So depending on what the hook says in it, that will impact what you likely will say in your verse, or where you will likely end the verse at, what you will be saying around the end of the verse, because you know what that's leading up to, which is the hook. And the third reason why this is helpful is because if you knock out the hook first, you know where the hook begins. So typically hooks will either begin on the first beat of the bar, they'll lead into the hook section, so they may actually begin at the ending of the verse, the very ending of that last bar on the verse, and lead into the hook section, or they may come in after the first beat of the hook section. So knowing where the hook begins will also influence where you end your verse. So knowing where the hook is will prevent you from overlap. So for an example, let's say you write your 2 verses first, okay? Verse 1 and verse 2 may end in different places, right? Let's say verse 1, you carry over a little bit after that that bar leading into the hook. So maybe it bleeds over a little bit into the hook section. And let's say verse 2, maybe you end a little early before the hook. Well, if you don't know where the hook actually is going to begin at, those ending parts of your verses may not sound that good anymore if there's overlap or whatever. So it helps to know where the hook begins at, so you know how it's going to fit with the verses, like a puzzle piece. Okay, tip number 3 is to use a rhyming dictionary, not as a crutch, as an aid, as a tool to help you be even faster. There's situations where you're trying to finish a rhyme scheme and you're trying to think of words that's going to rhyme. And sometimes it helps just to have a little extra help to give you even more ideas. And so a rhyming dictionary can certainly help you improve how quickly it takes you to complete a rhyme scheme. One that I recommend is RhymeWave. I actually covered it on this channel, so I will put a link to the video description below so you can check that out if you want to, but it is by far the best rhyming dictionary for rappers. And while we're talking about rhymes, after using a rhyming dictionary, if you're still stuck because you still just can't find any words that rhyme with the words you're using in your rhyme scheme, then you may just need to change the word you're rhyming with to begin with, because different words have different rhyming potential, meaning some words you can rhyme way more than other words. So sometimes that's an easy way to fix the issue, is just change the word altogether. A lot of times we can say the same things, but by using different words. So consider changing the word that you use to begin that rhyme scheme if a rhyming dictionary isn't helping out. Tip number 4 is to give yourself a deadline. Look, life is busy and time is not something that you have. Time is something that you have to make. All right. So look at a certain day on the calendar and mark it and say, look, by this date, I must have this song done. And what that's going to do is give you a sense of accountability. Just you writing something down or putting something on the calendar already is making it more real than it just being something that you have that you think about in your head from time to time. And make sure that you make your deadline reasonable. Just like look a month from now and mark that on the calendar and say, boom, that's when I must be done with this song. And that's going to put a healthy amount of pressure on you, which is going to force you to prioritize your days and your weeks and your time to make sure that that gets done. And then to the weeks leading up to that deadline, also mark days on your calendar throughout the weeks where you dedicate time on particular days to work towards completing your deadline. And by doing that, you will help prevent things from coming in to your life and taking away extra time, because you've already set that time aside. It's already accounted for. You've already committed to it. So you may have a friend that comes your way and says, hey, we got this game or whatever we're going to. You want to come along? You look at your calendar. Oh, wait, I've already got a session scheduled. I'm sorry, I can't make it. It's not to say you can't have a social life at all, but you got to put time aside or that time will disappear and you'll wonder where it all went. As I always say, time must have wings because it sure does fly. Okay, tip number 5 is to use a timer. Okay, these things are so powerful. You don't have to be this timer. You can use a timer that comes with your phone. But I'm going to speak for myself. I have a tendency to put way too much on myself than I can actually bear. Okay, and the same can be true when it comes to songwriting. I can be very ambitious. And this happens with a lot of rappers where if you try to like write an entire song in one day, you may be putting too much on yourself and you may actually discourage yourself from even working on it because you feel overwhelmed to begin with. So what I recommend doing is give yourself a limited amount of time, like 1 to 2 hours. It's a good window for you to work on something, but not spend too much time on it to where you start getting burnt out and you lose focus and you lose that fresh perspective. What I mean by fresh perspective is we tend to like things that are new to us, okay? Once things become normal, we kind of lose interest in them a little bit. They will no longer have that new car smell. You know, I always tell people, like, you know, when we were kids and you get like a new toy for Christmas, it's like, oh, it's so amazing. It's like the best thing ever. And then like 2 weeks later, it's like, yeah, it's, you know, it's a toy. You know, you still like it, but it's not new. It's not exciting anymore. And if you spend too much time on your song, you'll lose that because your own song will start to become old to you and you'll start losing interest in it. And then what will happen is you'll start wanting to change things because you know why? You want it to be new again. You'll start changing stuff that doesn't even need to be changed. There's nothing wrong with it. So limiting the amount of time that you give yourself to work on your song will help you retain some of that fresh perspective, and it will give you a healthy amount of pressure to make sure that you're focused and that you're moving with a sense of urgency when you're writing your song. So you won't get so hung up on little things here and there. It'll give you a sense of urgency, and I feel like it helps your creativity as well, because you have that timer ticking down and you know this is all that I have for today. And it makes that time more precious, and you typically take it even more serious because you only have so much of it. And I find that just giving yourself like a 1 to 2 hour window already kind of gives you a boost going into it, because you know there's an end in sight. You know you only have 2 hours. It's not just open-ended to where it's like, oh gosh, I'm just going to do this until it gets done. And then you just, oh man, it's a lot of work. When you say, hey, I just got 2 hours, already the burden is lifted a little bit, because like, oh, this ain't so bad. It's 2 hours. I can do this. I got a bonus tip for you. Tip number 6, eliminate distractions. Did you know that it takes an average of 25 minutes to get back on task after you've been distracted? And for that reason, it's so important to eliminate distractions while you're songwriting, not just to save you time, but to preserve your momentum while you're writing your song. See, that's a common thread. I began these tips I gave you to help you get some quick momentum. Maintaining momentum is very important when you're working on anything, really. So the same thing applies to songwriting. You get discouraged if you feel like this isn't going anywhere. So you want to eliminate or reduce as many of the things that can hold you back and prevent you from gaining that momentum. So 2 really good ways to eliminate distractions is, first, just think about the time that you're doing your songwriting. So for an example, let's say you live in the city and you know that the train comes by a certain time and it's like really loud and obnoxious and stuff. That may distract you, or you may need to wake up early in the morning before you go to school or work, because there's no one else in the house that can really bother you because they're still snoring, okay? And also cut your phone off, man. Hey, let's just be real, man. We know that thing is like a magnet. It's like drawing you in. It's like speaking to you. Pick me up. See what's going on in the world. You may have missed something. Hey, someone liked your photo. Who was it? You know what I'm talking about, that mental pull that's on your brain. Cut that joker off. Eliminate it altogether, and it's going to eliminate so many distractions. But I do also understand that some people write songs on their phone. And if you do, see if you can just silence your notifications or put it on airplane mode so it's still not making noises and you're not receiving distractions. Okay, let's do a quick recap. It's important to be mindful of the amount of time that you're spending writing your rap songs, because if you spend too much time, you can get burnt out. You can get discouraged. It can start to sound old to you and you're no longer interested, and it tricks you into thinking that you need to start changing stuff so it can be new again. And you can just lose that perspective. And eventually, and sadly, you can give up on a song altogether, and it may not even be anything wrong with it. And really good hacks that we can use to speed up this whole songwriting process is, number 1, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes just to plan some things out before you begin writing lyrics, and just do some brainstorm and some storyboarding to give yourself some direction so you know where this whole thing is going. Again, songwriting is like driving a car. You typically don't jump into a car until you know where your destination is. And this is going to give you so much focus during the songwriting process so you know where it's all going. Number 2, write the hook first. This is going to give you a lot of momentum, because that's going to knock out almost half of the song. You're going to know where the verses are leading up to, so that can influence what you talk about and how you end your verses. And it's also going to allow you to know timing wise where the hook begins. That way you know where you should end your verse so it doesn't overlap or anything too much. Number 3, use a tool like a rhyming dictionary to help you if you get stuck on a rhyme scheme, like Rhymewave, or consider changing the rhyme that you're using for that rhyme scheme altogether if it doesn't have a whole lot of potential for rhyming. Number 4, give yourself a deadline, mark a day on the calendar and commit to it. And then also mark days for the weeks leading up to that deadline to give yourself time to continue to work on that song on a weekly basis. Tip number 5, for those days that you're working on knocking out your song, use a timer. Limit yourself to 1 to 2 hours so you move with a purpose, so you work with a sense of urgency. This will allow you to stay focused and stay on task. And it will prevent you from getting overwhelmed by doing too much at one time. And it's going to help preserve that fresh perspective and prevent you from getting burnt out. And bonus tip number 6, eliminate as many distractions as possible. On average, it takes 25 minutes to get back on task after being distracted. So this will not only take you longer if you allow distractions, but it can also kill your momentum. So consider waking up earlier in the morning before everyone else in the house wakes up, before you go to school or go to work or whatever. And also consider eliminating the notifications on your phone as much as possible, as that can be a huge distraction. Just cut the thing off altogether if you can. So let me know, have you struggled in the past with completing your songs? Maybe you get stuck towards the middle of the songwriting process, or maybe you feel like you can't even get started to begin with. And also let me know, how much time do you think that you spend writing your songs? And also let me know which one of these tips that you think may be most helpful to you as you continue to improve upon these struggles that you've had. And if you're new to my channel, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. And I would love to hook you up with a free gift. It's an ebook that I wrote called The #1 Fundamental to Rapping. And it is an ebook that's going to help you wrap your mind, no pun intended, around how rapping works. And it's going to share with you what I believe to be the #1 fundamental to rapping that's going to allow your raps to sound interesting to your listener from the beginning all the way to the end and leave them wanting more. You can download that by clicking the link in the video's description below, and it's an easy read. It's not too dense, and you can read it within 20 or 30 minutes. It's something that I truly wish that I would have had when I first started rapping. It would have saved me a lot of time, and it would give me a lot of direction and clarity on things. Again, my name is ColeMize with ColeMizeStudios.com. I hope this video was helpful to you all. And always remember, when it comes to rapping, there's no rules. There's only techniques. Peace. Hey man, you see that subscribe button right there? Kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. Oh, and don't forget the bell icon. Kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. Hey, I know you see that like button, right? Kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. And look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the